Welcome to the Sincerely God podcast. I'm Sarah, and I believe that God is speaking to all of us all the time and in many different ways. The primary way that I listen is through two-way journaling. And on this podcast, I share excerpts from my journaling time with God, which are really inspirational messages spoken from the perspective of God to you. I'll talk more about what two-way journaling is and explore other methods which may be helpful for you to listen to God in your own unique way. I'm just an ordinary person who gets to hear from an extraordinary God, and I believe you can too. Thanks for joining. Hi everyone. So the excerpt that I'm going to share today is really just talking about how God is love and how we are to be His love to this world. He says, "Listen, hear, receive my words. I am speaking my words of life to you, my child. Receive them. Receive them deep in your heart. Let my words of truth transform you. Transform your way of thinking and approaching this life. You are here to love. Your purpose is to love. Show my love, shine my light. These are one and the same. Shine, shine, shine. When I tell you to shine, I am speaking of love. When I tell you to strike the ground with my power, I am speaking of my love in action. Love my people. Love them like you have never loved before. Love, my child. Love and live the ways of love. My way is love. My truth is love. My life is love. I am love. This is what I desire you to understand. The rest is unimportant. The rest will pass away. It will not last. Love is the only thing that lasts forever. I am love. Share me. Share my light. Share love. Share my love. Do you see? Do you understand? Stop wasting this life on things that don't matter. Yes, I'm telling you in black and white. There is no misinterpretation. Your work does not matter. Stop living like it does. Just stop. Let it all go. What if I told you that tomorrow was your last day in your place of work? Would you spend it in meetings? Would you spend it on useless tasks? No, of course you wouldn't. So why do you still struggle with this? Why do you still hold on to things that are not my will for you? Release. Let go. Let me do my work in you and through you. You worry about what others will think or say. Why? Why are you so concerned about the opinions of others? What if I told you that every day you waste worrying what others will think, one less person will see my light, one less person will enter my gates? Do you not see? Do you still not understand? Judgment is coming. I cannot wait forever, but I desire every one of my people to hear my voice and come into my gates. Not one do I desire to be left behind. So stop wasting this time I have given. Do my work, show my love, shine my light for all to see. Do not hide, do not hold back, do not worry who sees or hears you." This is a part of a journaling word. I have more that I might share another time, but when God was sharing this with me, it was when I was in that space of, He had already told me that my time at my work would be short, that I would be leaving my work, and yet I was still so consumed by it. I was still so focused on daily tasks and responsibilities that had to do with what my job was. And I don't think He's saying here that work in general doesn't matter. I think we are created as humans to do work in this world, and there's purpose in what we do and our vocations and things like that. But in this specific example, when He's speaking to me, it's because I had made my work tasks too high in my priority list, and I was being consumed by them. And what God was trying to show me is that there's so much more to living in this world. There's so much more to what He desires for me. And when I make those work tasks more important than loving people, then I'm missing it. And so I just want to add that clarification. Sometimes when when we're reading things in the Bible, just remembering the context. So much of the New Testament is, Paul writing letters to specific groups of people. And sometimes we can take things out of context to not understand, that He's speaking to a specific circumstance, to a specific time and group of people and situation. And so when I'm sharing these journaling words, it's similar where God is speaking to me in a specific season in my life, to a specific circumstance. And so while so much of it is just full truth that can apply all the time, sometimes there's going to be things that are very specific to a situation. And so I think that's true for some of what he was sharing here. I think the overall core of what he was just speaking to me at that time is that God is love, and really love is all that matters. And when we're going through our daily lives, when we're even setting goals in our life, I mean, we're kind of in the beginning of the year. Often people are setting goals for the year that's ahead. Is love your ultimate goal? Are you infusing love into all that you do? Because if you're not, you're missing it. Because love is the only thing that will last forever. So much in here. He says, you are here to love. Your purpose is to love. And so often, I've shared in prior words, he says, shine my light. I can make you shine in a particular way. So he's clarifying here that when God says to shine, he's saying to love. That shining his light is showing his love. They are one and the same. And so just like we can shine in unique ways, we're basically showing his love in unique ways. And that the purpose is to love. The purpose of us being in this world, the purpose of us being a friend, being a mother, being a daughter, being, whatever space you find yourself in this world, your purpose is to love. And yes, there are unique ways that we show love. There are unique ways that we love others. We are unique individuals, but always, always the purpose is to love. And so if you're losing that purpose in what you're doing, I remember one time him telling me, like, if you're struggling to know what is good and best and, making decisions and how you're spending your time, he's like, hold it up to the light of my presence. Hold it up to the light of God's presence. Does my love get distorted through it, or does my love shine through it clearly? And that is such a great measurement of what we're doing, what we're spending our time in, what we're spending our energy, our focus. Are we loving in that? Is God's love being the ultimate, shining the ultimate through that thing that we're doing or that circumstance that we're walking through? Are we being loved in that situation? So I think that's something that we can apply in all areas and anytime we're ever faced with a decision, how to respond to someone, where to go, what to do. Where is love in that? How are we showing God's love in that? And that can be true. And not only how are we loving other people, but also how are we loving ourselves? If we can't love ourselves first, if we can't receive love from God, then we're not going to be able to then show that love purely and wholly with our entire beings to our best ability without receiving that love first. And there's this part where he says, when I tell you to strike the ground with my power, I'm speaking of my love in action. So this reminds me of two things. First, there's an Old Testament story about the prophet Elisha. And I don't remember, there was a king, I think it was the king in Israel at the time. I don't recall the details. And maybe I can put in the show notes what the actual verse reference is. I think it's in 2 Kings. But this prophet is telling this king to do a prophetic act, to take his bow and arrow and to strike the ground. And in that particular story, the king does this thing, but he only does it, I think, with like 3 arrows. He doesn't empty his, I don't know what you call it, quill, whatever, pack of arrows. And the prophet is disappointed and actually kind of rebukes him to say, why didn't you strike the ground with all of your arrows? Why did you stop? So it reminds me of that, just that strike the ground with my power. And there's that symbolism of striking the ground with those arrows. The other thing that it reminds me of is around this time, I don't remember exactly when, I had a different morning that there was thunder and lightning. And God was talking to me about the thunder and the lightning as an analogy or symbolism. And he was saying the thunder is like a representation of the lightning, and thunder is a representation of his power. But it's not just the sound, right? We can often just only hear the thunder if we're inside, or maybe we're not looking in the direction of the lightning. Often we only hear the thunder, but we know that if there's thunder, then there's lightning. And he was using this analogy of like, don't just get caught up in, I hear about something. I know that there is power, there is lightning, but to actually see the power of the lightning. And in this analogy of the light is his love. And so striking the ground with power, when that lightning strikes the ground with power, what it is the power is his love. So being his love to this world, when we strike the ground with power, we are demonstrating his love in action. That it's not just talk, it's not just hearing the thunder. We speak of God's love, but no, we actually are showing God's love through our actions. So anyway, just I wanted to share that part. And then he says, love and live the ways of love. My way is love. My truth is love. My life is love. I am love. God is love. If we can actually recognize that and know that God is love, how many arguments between belief systems, how many arguments between like different denominations within the Christian church world, how many of those could be settled just by realizing that God is love? Yes, God is this truth. There's the verse that says, Jesus saying, I am the way, the truth, and the life. But love is above all. That his way is love. His life is love. His truth is love. That God is love. If we can get that basic, all-encompassing point that God is love, everything else falls into place. Like, love is the most important thing. And so when we're getting caught up in, well, this is what truth is. Yes, truth is important, but truth is love. God's truth is love. Always, always. Love is what lasts forever. Love is the most important thing. And so if we're getting caught up in the details of, I believe this aspect, or I interpret this Bible verse this way, or I think that truth means this exact interpretation, when we get caught up in that, we're missing the most important thing, and that is love. So that can apply to when we're talking about like belief systems in our, let's say, Christian faith, but it can apply to every decision that we're making every day. Are we making those decisions in love? Or are we choosing truth over love? He says, my truth is love. So I would disagree with those that would say truth is the most important thing. Truth is the most important thing when it is love. But if it is truth just for truth's sake and not for love's sake, then it's not the most important thing. And I think we miss that point a lot. And, even if you think about getting in an argument with your loved one, if you're married or maybe a sibling, a friend, if you're so focused on what is true, what you know to be right, and making sure that the other person knows that you are right, but you're missing love, then you're missing it all. You're missing the most important thing. So I just think that's something, it's hard to do. I'm not saying I do it. There's a reason that God keeps telling me these things of just being his way of love. It is a struggle, but if we can remember that, remind ourselves, and moment by moment, decision by decision, that God is love and love is the most important thing, I think over time we'll get better at it, right? It's like a habit. Over time we can receive it more fully, we can see it more fully, and we can be love more fully in our own lives. And man, when he tells me, what if I told you that tomorrow was your last day in your place of work? I know we've heard this term before of like, what if today was your last day on earth? How would you spend it? Well, he's telling me in this situation of like, okay, I've told you that you're not going to stay in your workplace for long. So why are you missing the point, right? He's like, if I told you that tomorrow was your last day in your workplace, would you spend it doing these tasks and meetings that you think are so important? Of course not. It's about the people. It's about those interactions, those connections. And what is that connection? Love is the connection. And I can say now that I'm 2 years past what was my last day of time in that workplace, that I don't miss the tasks at all. Like I don't miss the work itself. What I miss is the people. What I miss is those daily connections, and really because the root of that is love. And just this reminder of what is at stake. Why are you wasting time worrying what others will think? And what if, as you are wasting that time worrying what someone else will think, one less person is going to see my light. One less person is going to see God's love. And I know I've absolutely walked through that, where I have been afraid. I've been worried, afraid, whatever, and hesitant to maybe share with someone. Maybe that's just, I had practical examples of where God was kind of giving me encouraging messages to share with people, that to tell them that this is what I believe God is telling me to share with you. There were many times that I was hesitant, and there have been messages that I have not shared with people because I was afraid of getting it wrong. I was worrying, am I receiving correctly? Am I hearing correctly? Am I understanding that it's for this person? Or that the message that I believe that I'm hearing I'm not maybe hearing it correctly. And it's funny when you think about it, like, what's the worst that could happen? So somebody rejects me or doesn't talk to me anymore. Risk versus reward, right? Like the risk of maybe this person that I barely know anyway, or the stranger that is sitting on the other side of the coffee shop. So they'll think I'm crazy or a strange person, or they will avoid me or say something mean to me, versus the possible reward of they'll experience God's love for them in that moment, because whatever message I felt like God was sharing with me was exactly what they needed to hear at that point. Of course he's telling me, how do you not understand this? Like, if I can actually take a step back and be kind of the external third party, not invested, and I'm looking at it, like, of course we always choose to love the person. We always choose to take that risk if it's going to mean that they could potentially hear a message from God for them, because maybe they're struggling to hear at that moment, or maybe they're just facing a difficult situation and they need that additional encouragement from a stranger or a friend. Of course, that's worth the risk of somebody thinking that you're strange, or potentially, rejecting you, or just saying no thank you. And when I have actually stepped out and taken those risks to share a message with somebody, 99% of the time it's been received positively. Even people who don't necessarily believe in God, or certainly don't have the same beliefs that I do, they've received it positively. If it's shared in love, then it is most often received as love. So it's just a good reminder for me, because I am an introvert. I don't like to talk to strangers. I actually do better when God gives me messages to share with people I know, even if I don't know them well. If I at least have some type of connection, that's a lot easier for me than to walk up to a stranger, on the street or in the grocery store or whatever. Which is funny, because on the one hand, it's like, what do you have to lose if they're a complete stranger? But I don't know. I'm assuming it has to do with my introversion, but it's very hard for me to do that. But if I can take a step back out of my, fear, however you want to describe it, lack of courage, if I can take a step back and see, what are the actual stakes, of course, always choose love. Always choose the possibility of love over the risk of somebody having a poor opinion of you. And I think that I'm using an example of sharing something that may be unusual, a message you think is coming from God, but that can apply to so many different things in your life, just decisions that you make. I mean, even, for example, my decision to leave my job that I had for a number of years, because I felt like God was leading me down that path. I mean, that's something that I had to not worry about what other people would think. And I have decisions all the time that even closer friends, family, that they don't They don't always understand the decisions that I'm making or why I go one way versus another. And getting to that place where I'm not wasting time worrying what other people will think. And instead I'm focusing on God. I'm focusing on love and the way that he desires to show his love through me in my own life, because we all have unique paths. So just that reminder, and that reminder as well that God doesn't desire anyone to be left behind. He doesn't desire anybody to miss out on his love for them. And so even people that are unkind or that we have a hard time with, just knowing that God loves them so much, and we get to be a part of God's love in this world, and we get to be a way that God can show his love to every person. And so remembering that there is no one that is outside of his love and care and his desire for them to know him and to be in that connection, that relationship with God. So just to remember that, and to go through our lives every day, remembering that our purpose is to love, and that love is the only thing that lasts forever. And so let that guide our decisions, let that become our way of life. And he says, shine my light for all to see, show my love. So I just encourage you, when you are facing decisions, to ask that question: how can I best show God's love in this situation, in this circumstance? And that's showing that love to yourself, showing that love to the people in your life, and just remembering that, yes, there are other things that are important in this world, but nothing is more important than love. And so stop wasting time. Stop wasting time worrying what other people will think. Stop wasting time choosing tasks that are unimportant in the grand scheme of this life. So I just pray that you would walk through your day full of love, and that even every time you maybe see lightning or hear thunder, that you would remember that is a representation of God's love in action in this world. Thanks for tuning in to the Sincerely God podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends. If you'd like more information, you can go to my website, sincerelygodquotes.com. There you'll find links to my social media, as well as an ability to get your own copy of Sincerely God, a collection of quotes, either the book or the prayer journal. Until next time, keep listening to how God is speaking to you.
It's all inside you, waiting to